遠我知，遠我知正話，呢支遠嘅，呢支近嘅。
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the press briefing. The Chief Executive will first speak before answering questions. Because of the epidemic, please stay socially distanced. We'll first hear from the Chief Executive. Friends from the media, Hong Kong people, today is the 4th day of the Chinese New Year. Is the arrival of spring. I wish you all good health for the coming year and a prosperous year. In about 2 hours or so, the Winter Olympics in Beijing will begin. It has attracted global attention. I wish the Winter Olympics all the luck. But apart from live broadcast in commercial televisions, this year RTHK Channel 32 is also authorized to broadcast the games. So I ask you all to cheer for the Hong Kong athletes participating in the Winter Olympics. Today's press conference takes place just after the 4:30 press briefing on updates of COVID by Department of Health and the Center for Health Protection, because I would like to say something about the direction of our work. On the 27th of January, last Thursday, when I was summing up my opening speech, I said that the Hong Kong SAR government will not rest during the Chinese New Year. We'll be fully mobilized to fight the epidemic. All departments and bureaus will be working together as a team to fight the epidemic. As you could see, for the first 3 days of the Chinese New Year, frontline officers, not just civil servants and my colleagues, we also have staff from testing contractors, from the HA, the sewage testing team of the Hong Kong U, as well as a large number of volunteers have been working together In the past 3 days, I have personally been to the different locations of the different stages of our work. I've been to 16 places. I went there to express my gratitude for their work, as well as to cheer them on. Our team of governance has not rested either. We have made use of every second to take stock of what happened, to make preparation of the epidemic, as well as to prepare for the launching of the vaccine passport that will be launched shortly, as well as the 6th round of the Anti-epidemic fund. So I'd like to give you a report of our work at this stage. The epidemic is getting worse and worse. You have heard from Dr. Choi, the controller of the CHP. I'm sure you feel that this latest outbreak is the worst we have seen in the past 2 years. We make this statement because of the following. First, we have over 100 local infected cases daily. For cases with an unknown source, the number is on the rise. Last Thursday, I said there was an accumulated 30 cases that have an unknown source. Now we have over 220 such cases. These cases scatter over different districts involving different occupations, different posts. We found that Omicron has a very high transmissibility in a domestic setting as well as in a work setting. The second factor is the situation. We have seen a rapid transmission of Omicron, and the environmental factor seems to be more and more prominent. We have seen lateral and vertical transmissions in buildings. Previously, we have had vertical transmissions and involving evacuation of residents, but the situation this time is different. It doesn't involve the structural problems of buildings, say, for example, drains. We are still under the threat of a transmission of Omicron and Delta, but as we've heard from Dr. Chuang, the number of cases of Delta is declining. We hope that we are able to cut the Delta transmission chains involving hamsters. Another factor is sewage monitoring. In the past year or so, Hong Kong is one of the rare places that have put sewage monitoring systems in active use. We monitor the sewage discharge from households to test for the virus. Between the 4th and the 5th outbreak, it seemed like the situation was quite stable, but we have not stopped our work. We have been increasing our efforts to collect sewage samples, and I have done a site visit as well. There are more and more alerts sent out under the sewage monitoring system. That means that we identify more and more cases of a positive presence of a virus in sewage, and these cases are all over the territory. Very shortly, we will disseminate the information on the dashboard of our website. Say, yesterday, the 3rd of February, the Drainage Services Department as well as the Environmental Protection Department have collected samples at designated locations as well as random locations. They have collected 75 samples. 28 of them are positive. But in the end, we did not have to take action against the 28 locations. If it is a drainage discharge or where a hospital is located, then obviously from the sewage discharged from COVID patients, there will be a positive result. So we make a decision as to where lockdowns or compulsory testing actions will be put in place, taking into account all these different factors. Our strategy is still premised upon our very successful containment strategy that have been put in place in the past 2 years. Our objective is still dynamic zero or dynamic containment. We aim to cut the transmission chain as soon as possible. Now I'm going to move on enhancement of our capacity. I've covered a lot of these in the 21st, but I'd like to say more. First, our capacity of testing. Testing is important in the early identification of cases. There are different ways to conduct the test. The most vigorous one is lockdown. That is, well, apart from active and vigorous testing, people living in that lockdown area are not allowed to leave until we have completed all the tests and obtained a negative result. Then the people involved show us their wristband, and then they're allowed to leave. It is in short RTD. The other one is CTN, compulsory testing notices. They are allowed to leave. People involved are allowed to leave, but within a specified period of time, they need to get tested at mobile testing facilities. The notice has a legal effect, so members of the public will have to abide by them. The third one is testing on a voluntary basis. Members of the public will be allowed to move about. They don't have to wait for a notice to get tested. If they are concerned, then they can be tested. In Tuen Mun and Sham Shui Po, we have launched large-scale voluntary testing. This is similar to what we've done in September 2020. At that time, we call it a universal community testing. But during that time, if you want to get tested, you could. And now we have RAT, Rapid Antigen Test. It's an antigen test done by oneself. But I must emphasize that this rapid antigen test is not to replace the nucleic test, but it is a very effective assistive device. I will explain to you more about the expedited use of this tool. Well, we have community testing centers. There are altogether 19 of them. For mobile ones, if we operate 50 to 60 or even over 70 at times every day. I am grateful to our testing contractors. Upon very short notice, they were able to mobilize a large number of manpower to set up these mobile stations. Our testing capacity at laboratories, including sampling, is at 100,000 a day. But for the past period, we have done more than that. On average, it's 130,000 or 140,000. But that cannot be sustained without the addition of manpower or facilities. In the past month, in view of the latest outbreak and the various ways of testing, in Hong Kong within a month we have conducted 1.35 tests, nucleic tests. And I'm now going to give you more information about our enhanced testing capability. First, for the fixed capacity, we will increase it from 100,000 to 200,000. So that is an increase from 100,000 to 200,000. It can be combined with other initiatives. We will reinstate the 4-yen laboratory in a sports center in Fo-Tan. On top of that means we have an additional 100,000 tests that can be done. So we have 300,000 testing capacities per day. The other one, also related to testing, is we will increase the use of RAT as an assistive tool. This is a test done by yourself, so it's easier. In the past week or so, the Home Affairs Department has worked with about 2,000 voluntary workers to distribute these testing kits. They have to assemble them because they came in bulk, so we have to have them reassembled and put together for distribution. We distribute them to cleaners and security workers because these two groups are exposed to high risk. Well, for areas of which the sewage is tested positive, but it covers a large area, we also make use of RAT. We have already distributed about 600,000 such kits. It involves Discovery Bay and Ma Wan and Park Island. We work together with the property management company in the distribution of the RAT. We hope that it will bring peace of mind to the residents. We are procuring RATs in the tens of millions. We think that they will be arriving soon. Afterwards, we will launch a universal RAT. That means each member of the Hong Kong public will be able to obtain one kit to do the test. Well, the purpose of this assistive tool is indeed very effective and rapid. Let me give you an example. Well, I was asked a question on the 29th of January if the chief executive has been to a funeral home where there was a positive case. I can tell you that this morning I received a Leave Home Safe notification. On the 29th of January, I went to a funeral home at the same time as someone who's tested positive. So I received a notice to get tested just to be on the safe side. So I did it. I did the rapid test. It's very easy and it's quite accurate. There is a line that indicates it's a negative result. That's the merit of a rapid test. I will hold it up again. I can even open it to show you.
We have produced a short video and showing in the local TV station on how you conduct an RAT and their advantages, and please promote it for us. And now we talk about the strengthening our testing capacity, and next we need to strengthen our isolation and quarantine facilities. For any confirmed cases, they will need to be isolated for treatment, and their close contacts and close contacts, they also need to be quarantined to cut off the transmission chain. Hong Kong is currently the most stringent in the world, and it's not possible in many other countries if they have hundreds of thousands of cases. And how can you admit all of these new cases? Hong Kong so far managed to be the most stringent, that all the confirmed cases, whether symptomatic or not, while for Omicron most of the cases are asymptomatic, will still get admitted and isolated, though treatment will not be needed until they meet the discharge criteria. Well, we've just amended the discharge criteria. If we have over 100 cases admitted daily, this will bring a lot of pressure to the hospital authority. As you heard from Dr. Lau from the HA, and they have just opened the community treatment facility and Asia World Expo. Altogether, they'll provide about 3,600 beds. from different hospital clusters and the Asian World Expo 4 halls and North Lantau Hospital Infection Control Center that was built by the central government. However, we can't have infinite number of beds for the asymptomatic confirmed cases, as we do have other patients require hospital treatment. While currently we have about 3,600 beds, and this number may not be possible to become bigger. For the quarantine facilities waiting for close contacts or sub-close contacts, they need to be admitted to the quarantine facilities operated by Department of Health, including the Penny Base Quarantine Center, Lei Moon Holiday Village, Pat Heung Junior Police Call Center, and Sai Kung Recreation Center, and different hotels, including one new hotel. Well, by next week, there will be about 6,200 rooms. While this number cannot grow indefinitely, even though we have adopted some mitigation measures, for example, the Penny Bay quarantine period from 21 days shortened to 14 days, as the incubation period of Omicron is shorter. And we have just amended the hospital authority discharge criteria. Well, we might run out of room pretty soon if we have a daily caseload of over 100. Therefore, our strategy is as follows. Well, it's a matter of mobilizing resources. That the Penny Bay Quarantine Center will be gradually converted into a community treatment facility, community isolation facility, to admit asymptomatic patients for isolation purposes. Lots of the Omicron cases are asymptomatic or don't require treatment. Therefore, they only need to be isolated. Therefore, we gradually send these asymptomatic cases to Penny Bay for isolation. And following this, and where would the quarantine case people go? And for those close contacts that need to be quarantined, well, we first arrange the sub-close contacts currently need to be quarantined for 4 days, and then we'll send them to home quarantine. We tried this before. Very early on in the epidemic, we tried this, and recently in Kwai Chung Estate, we asked them to stay at home for a few days. We haven't activated both options. However, they will be triggered anytime. I would like to get the public prepared on this, as these will be the contingency plans when we have a large number of cases. For this new arrangement, the Hospital Authority and the Department of Health have drafted comprehensive guidelines, and will take a risk-based approach in its implementation. We look at this a patient in question, his age, her living conditions, before deciding whether we will allow home quarantine. And we also need to wear bracelets for surveillance at home. Thirdly, we need to step up our contact tracing capacity. In just 1 week, we boost the capacity from one contact tracing office in Kai Tak. We're now expanded to Mong Kok. And the first day of the Chinese New Year, I visited both contact tracing offices. We have doubled our capacity. We are now setting up the third one. As we have trained over 10,000 disciplinary forces members capable of carrying out contact tracing, now that we need to identify more space. Therefore, I'm asked the Government Property Agency to identify ready premises. Once we identify the right premise, we can deploy this trained personnel to activate the third contact tracing office. And fourth, we establish surveillance on sewage samples. This designated or ad hoc sewage sample point will try to add as much as possible, and hopefully we can conduct sampling of over 100 locations. Yesterday with about 70, and hope that from now on we can conduct 100 tests daily. Despite our efforts and the epidemic being such critical, we still need the public support. Therefore, I urge people of Hong Kong to support all these measures I outlined, as well as those I will announce later. First, substantially reduce the flow of people, even though at the early stage on the 5th of January and to be effective on the 7th of January are the strictest social distancing measures, for example, no evening dining and closure of a dozen of scheduled premises. According to the committee data, the committee only dropped about 2 to 20 or 30%. This is not good enough. Still, a lot of people are traveling, and during the Chinese New Year, I'm afraid there were a lot of cross-family gatherings, as well as gathering at places of worship. Therefore, this will make it more difficult to cut off the chains of transmission. Out of practical need, and our meeting yesterday and also announced that from now on, the government will expand these special work arrangements till next Friday on 11th of February. Other than emergency and essential services and those related on the anti-epidemic efforts, otherwise the civil servants will be working at home. I noticed that the Secretary of Civil Service, Patrick Nip, has said that 30% of the civil servants will be working at home. And the LegCo had answered my appeal, as well as most of the meeting will be conducted via Zoom. I've also conducted the Real Estate Developer Association and the Hong Kong Association of Banks. Hopefully they can reduce the number of staff working in the office. Religious gatherings should be suspended as well. And for this weekend, I hope the religious gathering should be suspended. The government shall step up enforcement of the group gathering ban. When we see there are large crowds gathering, we will immediately enforce the law. As for to tighten the social distancing measures by current regulations, by next Tuesday, we'll submit to EXCO for discussion, which we'll hope for its quick passage. And for the measures in place, it will be effective till the 17th of February. However, I'm talking about the further tightening of these measures.
The second thing I appeal to the public for their support is to support testing. We've done our best to increase the number of mobile testing stations. But given the sheer volume of demand, I apologize that members of the public had to wait for some time. I ask for your understanding. Well, on top of compulsory testing, I ask members of the public to purchase the RAT rapid antigen test to get tested themselves. And the third effort is to boost the vaccination rate. We need to make use of this window to increase the vaccination rate. Vaccination obviously reduces the risk of serious conditions of fatality. There are 1,300 confirmed patients in the 5th outbreak. They are admitted, but only 5 of them needed special treatment using respiratory devices. And these 5 people aged between 60 and 94. They are not vaccinated. That means there are still some elderly patients, but they have been vaccinated. And as a result, they don't need special treatment. Of the 5 serious cases, there is still 1 case that is in a critical condition. It's a Delta case. I hope that by my clear illustration, elderly people realize the need to get vaccinated, because vaccination will greatly reduce the risk of a serious condition and fatality. This will, in a way, alleviate the pressure faced by our healthcare system. So I ask elderly people, don't be hesitant anymore. Get vaccinated as soon as possible. Our capacity of vaccination is 60,000 doses a day. We now announce that in Causeway Bay, we will set up another community vaccination center at Leighton Community Hall. I'd like to thank the developer because the location, the premises itself is released for our use by the developer. On the 24th of February, we will launch the vaccine passport. That involves legislative amendment. Next Tuesday, similarly, we will make an application of the amendment of 599F, Prevention and Control of Disease Requirements and Directions, Business and Premises Regulation. Apart from the addition of a requirement of the use of vaccine passports, we will also include more premises that are not currently scheduled under this regulation. On top of that, we will make use of administrative measures to require the use of vaccine passports before entering a premises, say, for example, schools. I now give you some heads up. At the beginning, the requirement of vaccine passport is 1 dose, especially in relation to patrons or customers. For staff members, say, for the catering business, they've already asked for staff members to be vaccinated twice. But for vaccine passport, the requirement will start off with 1 dose. After some time, it will be 2 doses. And after some more time, the requirement will be 3 doses before you can make use of the passport to enter certain premises. These legislative amendments will be for the deliberation of the EXCO next Tuesday. We'll make announcements as soon as we have a decision. Next, I move on to round 6 of Anti-epidemic Fund, that is Anti-epidemic Fund 6.0. We have already made the plans. We will use Anti-epidemic Fund 5.0 as a blueprint, but we try to include trades and individuals are not covered by the 5th round. I'd like to thank many legislators who have written to me and given me their input. We think that for the funding application for injection into the 6th round of the Anti-epidemic Fund will be no less than $20 billion. They will all be used on individuals and trades that are affected by the epidemic. Previously, the scope of the Anti-epidemic Fund include hospital authority and the government, but now for the at least $20 billion will be used all on individuals and enterprises that are affected by the epidemic. I'm sure that the CS4A has reached the chairperson of the Finance Committee. Today is the 4th of February. We hope that in about 10 days' time, that is mid-February, there will be a meeting of the Finance Committee to discuss the funding approval. Before that, the CS4A will lead a team to attend a electrical meeting to explain about the latest round of the fund. Well, when we need the support of the central authorities, of course, we will seek their support. On a number of occasions, the central authorities have expressed to me their care about Hong Kong, and they've said that if there is a need, we should just say it, and they will give us the support as much as possible. So the Huayan laboratory, resources, and manpower needed in Huayan laboratory, we have made a request, and a large share of the resources and manpower would come from Guangdong province, and I'd like to thank them. Lastly, I do understand that in our fight against the epidemic, transparency and timely release of information is of utmost importance. Some residents of lockdown premises said that they didn't really know what was going on. So we would step up our effort to timely release information. We now have press releases, YouTube clips, Facebook page of ISD, Tamer Talk, Facebook, and Tamer TG Telegram channel, as well as the dashboard of the dedicated website. These are the different channels that release information. We will enhance our effort. As I've said, that for the area with sewage testing positive, you will find the information on the dashboard. And RTHK is the public broadcaster of Hong Kong. I've asked them to assist us in the dissemination of information. I'm sure that the director of the RTHK will give us more information later. Well, I've used quite some time, and now I will answer questions. Now the floor's open. Please raise your hand when you're named. First, tell us the organization you represent and use the microphone we give you. The gentleman in white. I'm from TVB. First, about the rapid antigen test kit. When will they reach the hands of members of the public? Some people have to do 4 or 6 tests. So how do you distribute them? And in relation to vaccine passport, more premises will be included under 599F. What kind of premises are they? And on the 29th of January, whose funeral did you attend? Would that affect your work? Now you have to do the compulsory testing. Does it mean that there is a risk of infection? And today you're not wearing a mask. Isn't that a risk? Just now the CHP had shown us a clip about a proper wearing of mask. I explained just now that the RAT is not to replace a nucleic test. So for tests under compulsory testing, say the first, the 3rd day, 5th day, 7th day, they cannot be replaced by RAT. If the test is required in the form of a nucleic test, then those people will have to go to testing centers or mobile testing stations to have the sample taken for testing. For RAT is assistive only. Where there is sewage positive test result, but the area is huge, then we would like to make available RAT for residents in this area to make use of, to have a peace of mind. Well, when the RAT is in the market, I would do it as often as possible. I'm not going to repeat what I said, why I do not wear a mask. I am very careful with personal hygiene, and I'm very careful. I frequently do this RAT, and I've done numerous nucleic tests, because sometimes as a chief executive I would have to go somewhere, and I have to do these tests, so there is no transmission risk. I stand from a distance from you and from people I speak to, so there is not really any risk. Well, you ask about the notification. I wasn't asked to do a compulsory test. There are different notifications. It's in English. It says,
was also visited by a confirmed COVID-19 or preliminary positive patient. Your relevant visit records are 2022年1月29日 1902去到2302，因為我出嚟冇嘟啊。
Well, I did not click leave because there is no need to scan it. It's a universal funeral parlor.
By yourself 啊，因為
As you know that the the confirmed case is not at the funeral, so it's not a compulsory testing notice, and there wasn't compulsory testing notice covering the entire funeral parlor. So I was only asked to arrange for a test myself, and if I didn't feel well, then I should seek medical attention. So immediately I did the RAT, and as soon as I have time, I would do the nucleic test. Sorry, speakers off mic.
Thank you. Well, this illustrates that there are different types of notifications. In the government's epidemic work, we need to weigh our priorities and on different levels. We can't adopt a one-size-fits-all approach, as this is not a good way to use our resources. I believe that this is the most minor notification. I happen to be at a place, and then you can decide what to do for the peace of mind. Therefore, the RT has the benefit of giving you the peace of mind quickly. If I'm worried, should I be working today? Hopefully this RT can provide a peace of mind in an assistive way. In fact, it is quite popular in other countries, as they do not have the capacity to admit more patients or conduct contact tracing or do nucleic testing. Therefore, they rely on the citizens' voluntary testing through RT to pick up positive cases. As for another question, and for the amendment to the 599F to resubmit to EXCO, what type premises will be included? Well, since the EXCO have not discussed them, it's not the time to disclose. Well, it will be other kind of premises that will be included under 599F, so that we can impose the vaccine pass mandate. Hope that we can all agree that at this stage, after vaccinated for a year, we haven't get to the stage where we feel assured about the vaccination rate. We need to deploy all means or even measures so that the public can get vaccinated. If a few months goes by, we still cannot hit the 90% vaccination rate, by then I will be worried. Let's say many places have reopened and the mainland have reached vaccination rate of over 90%, and also our nearby places. What will happen to Hong Kong? Should we stay this way? Or what should be the way forward? The public should know the consequences. If we don't try to boost the vaccination rate, in a few months we will be in very challenging circumstances. Next question. At the front row, the reporter in a suit. Good afternoon, Ms. Lam. You claimed that the Guangzhou will come to assist in the setting up of the air-inflated laboratories. When will they arrive, and where will they set up these laboratories? And for the funding, will it be provided for free by the Guangdong government, or the government will need to reimburse Guangzhou? Well, will they boost the capacity by 100,000? Can they help the Hong Kong to conduct a few more rounds of universal community testing? Will this be more effective? Next question. Well, you announced a number of measures today. When can we put this wave under control? And thirdly, on nucleic testing, you claim that that's the single tube capacity can be increased by 100,000. Some of the contractors hope that it can relax their requirement. Now that you're asking to 3-in-1 testing, can you relax the requirement for higher efficiency? Who are you representing? Phoenix TV. a few questions here. Our request for assistance from the mainland is different this time. After around 18 months, last time on the July and August of 2020, I requested the central government. Back then, we lacked the infrastructure. After this 18 months, we keep upgrading our facilities and capacity. Currently, our testing contractors, we have about 8 or 9 of them. A lot of them have expanded with bigger labs and bigger spaces. Therefore, our infrastructure is much better than before. This time we're quite focused. We are very specific. For example, we need to set up air-inflated laboratories. Well, at the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park's Sports Center, well, now that we have to rebuild one, and the laboratory, we need the testing staff and the materials. Whether the testing contractor tells us what they need, and we request them from the Guangdong government. Well, we might have ordered them, however, they're not coming quick enough. All the expenditure will be borne by the Hong Kong government. And for the operations, well, will be done by the government in collaboration with the testing contractor. We need to boost their capacity. So that's the situation. Well, the Huayan air-inflated laboratory, well, they will be set up within this month. Each time we set up this lab, first we need to sort out the power supply. As you can imagine, they consume a lot of electricity. Well, this cannot be provided at a sports center in normal circumstances. The first one at Ma On Shan Sports Center, the power company and the EMSD will ensure there's sufficient power for setting up this Huayan laboratory, and then we shall set up the equipment, and the mainland personnel will arrive to assist. Well, the personnel actually start coming before the Chinese New Year, and they are currently deployed at the existing laboratories at the contractors, as they do have the personnel and space and the equipment. That was quite different from 2020. Since you asked why don't we have another round of universal community testing? Well, last time we assisted by the central government, that was conducted on September 2020. Altogether, over 1.78 million people were tested compared to the over 7 million people. Well, we called it community testing on a voluntary basis. Within 1 month, we have conducted 3.5 million tests in a month. Well, in terms of effectiveness, last time at the community testing, in 2 weeks we have tested 1.78 million individuals. We've identified 45 positive cases. But the success rate or the efficacy rate is about 0.0025. For every 100,000 people, we only picked up 2.5 positive cases. Well, the targeted testing, whenever there are signs of cases, whether through lockdown testing or compulsory testing, take the second day of CNY. On that day, we conducted 138,000 tests and identified 130 positive cases. Success rate 0.094. For every 10,000 people tests, we identified 9.54 positive cases. Compared to community testing, the benefits are 38 times bigger. And last night at the Taipei Fortune Center testing, at the compulsory testing, we identified cases. Therefore, we conduct a lockdown testing, where altogether we tested 1,327 individuals, and we identified 5 cases. Success rate at 0.337. Compared to community testing, 145 times increase. I'm not trying to defend why we're reluctant on universal testing. When you have finite resources, you might spend on the most important places instead of diffusing it. We have a limited capacity, not just laboratories. We also need to do sampling, and we also need to have public buy-in to make this happen. And last time, the community testing is only 1.78 million people get tested. For this time, well, for RAT, I expect the response to be better. We currently have ordered tens of millions of RAT kits. Well, we handed out 0.6 million, and now there are 0.6 million kits will be handed out in needy areas. When these tens of millions of RAT kits arrived, we will distribute to everyone in Hong Kong. Just like we handed our masks, well, through the post office or the district offices or the management company, we managed to send them to everyone in Hong Kong. We hope that everyone can conduct one RAT test for their peace of mind and also let them to try it out. I expect the pandemic to unfold. A lot of people actually in other countries has boxes of RAT kits so that they can test themselves before going out, let's say to a soccer game or to do shopping, etc. Well, last year at the marathon, we also handled these kits. When the runners completed their marathon, well, a sponsor handed out RAT kits to the runners to see that whether they got infected after completing the marathon. Therefore, the RAT kits has its value and significance, and there will be more extensive use of them from now on.
Next question. The one behind Phoenix TV. I'm from RTHK. I'd like to ask about the RAT kit. You said that it will be distributed to everyone. Can you raise your voice, please? In relation to the RAT kit, I'd like to ask about timing. When will it be distributed? Would you wait for the commissioning of Huayan laboratory? So is it going to be voluntary or what? Will there be penalties if you don't do one? For Penny's Bay quarantine facility and home quarantine, well, that is not going to go ahead. So how bad will the situation be before you consider home quarantine? You said that you need to consult the EXCO. But what about additional scheduled premises? Would it include transportation? For the anti-epidemic fund, will it include new businesses or trades or occupations? For the RAT kit distribution, it's 100% voluntary. There won't be any regulations governing it. It's not like RATs or compulsory testing notices. It's for people who would like to have peace of mind. We have a variant that is highly transmissible, and some people may not have the time to queue to get tested. So it's voluntary. And it's not related to the setting up of Huayan laboratory. We don't have enough stock. Everyone's scrambling for it. So when the order comes, when there is sufficient quantity, we will start the distribution. In the meantime, we will plan for the distribution, effective distribution. We have experience. We made use of the Hong Kong Post to distribute masks to everyone's letterboxes. Well, in relation to quarantine and isolation, well, that depends on the number of admissions. So we will wait for the signal from the hospital authority. Well, about 3,600 beds, there are about 1,400 or more patients. And if one day they know that they only have 100 and 200 beds left before they run out, then we will start it. At Penny's Bay, we have vacated certain facilities. So we don't just put people in where there is a vacant room. It's done by the different areas. So for those who are arranged to go to Penny's Bay, then, well, before we do that, we have in mind that some facilities will have to be vacated for community quarantine. So that depends on the situation. For the other two questions, it's difficult for me to give detailed information. For 599F scheduled premises, it will have to be discussed by the EXCO. Well, the possible inclusion of transportation is controversial. There are people supporting it and people opposing to it. So before the EXCO discuss it, it won't be appropriate for me to say anything. For the Anti-Epidemic Fund 6.0, apart from using 5.0 as the blueprint, we take into account premises that are forced to close under 599F and catering businesses that can no longer do the evening dinner service. That also includes school buses, nanny buses, that have stopped operating because of school closure. On top of that, there are also canteens. But we heard that we've always left out some groups. We have been having active discussion these days. I myself and the CS4A asked our colleagues to not leave out anyone. We read the input of legislators and stakeholders. We hope that 6.0 will be better received. It's not appropriate for me to divulge any information. All I can say is that the magnitude will be sizable because it's no less than $20 billion compared to previous rounds. In the various rounds of injection, well, you see that the amount itself is quite large, over 100 billion, but a lot of them are not directly for businesses or individuals. That includes construction of facilities, procurement of resources, funding to the hospital authority, and this employment support scheme. That's quite sizable. As I recall, the scale of funding used to directly benefit individual and enterprises is less than $50 billion. But now we will have that for at least $20 billion.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lam. A few questions from SCMP. Will the vaccine pass be applied to children?
Sorry, I'm sorry, you have to speak up.
Sorry. Will the vaccine pass be applied to children? What will be the age range for the vaccine pass? Is it appropriate to make children as young as 5 to get 2 shots or even a booster in order to enter premises? And when will the government require the public to get the booster? And also, is it still practical to continue the containment policy given the strain on manpower and facilities and the impact on school students and businesses? And at what threshold do you think Hong Kong will be able to implement the live with the virus policy? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I actually still could not fully hear what you are saying. That's a problem of wearing a mask sometimes. I'll try to answer. Okay. Well, first of all, the vaccine pass is imposed in order to encourage and induce vaccination by those who should be vaccinated, especially the elderly, because the current vaccination rate amongst the elderly is still very low. For example, for those aged 70 and above, I think half of them have yet to be vaccinated, and the number is probably about 500,000. So we really need to encourage and promote and induce more unvaccinated people to come forward to get the jab. If children are not eligible for vaccination for the time being, of course they will not be subject to the vaccine pass, because in Hong Kong's case, children start very late, okay? And at the moment, we still have not been providing one of the vaccines, that is BioNTech, to young kids 5 and above. So I would imagine that when we amend the legislation to provide vaccine pass in terms of children, we will make the needed allowance. We wouldn't put children under very difficult situation. Now, the booster, when to get the booster, this is not for me to say because it's clinical driven. So the experts, because we have a joint scientific group on vaccines in the Department of Health. So they would advise the government for each type of vaccine, that is Sinovac and BioNTech, what should be the lead time between the first and second, and between the second and third. So when I said that after a certain period, the vaccine pass will be defined as 3 doses, again, we will make full allowance. So the period will not be shorter than the period advised by the experts. Otherwise, it's illogical and unreasonable. So, for example, if the experts said that the 3rd dose should only be taken 9 months after the 2nd dose, then to define vaccine pass as 3 doses, then we will have to take into account that period. So you need not worry about that. Now, for the containment policy, at the moment, it is still the best policy and strategy for Hong Kong. It has proven to be effective in helping Hong Kong to suppress the previous waves and allow people to get back to their normal work until we are more fully vaccinated. Then we can consider maybe another arrangement. But at the moment, as I said on many, many occasions, this is still the best policy. Achieving dynamic zero is still our best target until we have reached a more satisfactory vaccination rate. So we will continue to do this policy, but we are strengthening all the measures. We are enhancing our capacity so that in containing the spread of virus, we could be more effective. So that's what we are doing. I hope you will agree with me that we should put the lives of our people at the top priority. We have managed to keep the number of fatalities very low at 213 for a period of over 2 years, and we wouldn't want to put Hong Kong people at risk. Thank you.
The last question at the back row, the female reporter, the green one, the one next to you. Hong Kong economic times. If the epidemics spun out of control, how strict can the social distancing measures be? And how much does a RG kit cost, and where are they purchased from? In rebuilding the Hoi Yan Lab, why you choose the Ma On Transport Center? Any consideration on the location? First, well, I wouldn't say the current situation is out of control. However, very critical. Well, we haven't seen the peak yet. Therefore, we need to strengthen our measures and capacity, and requires the public to work with us. As to how severe, well, no matter how severe it is, the Hong Kong government will never give up. We will continue to do our utmost to achieve zero infection, to contain the virus, so that the public can live safely, and also hope that the public shouldn't give up either. So long as the public willing to cooperate with us, after enhancing our capacity, we can continue and bring Hong Kong out of the woods. Therefore, we will never give up. Like in the 4:30 press briefing, as for the report as whether we will surrender, I can say here, the Hong Kong government will not surrender. Every day we worked our utmost to combat this COVID-19 pandemic. As for the cost of the rapid antigen test kit, I don't know. I know that in the market it costs about 3 digits per kit. While we're buying in bulk, therefore I don't know the exact price. However, we don't just procure from one supplier, so long that it is accredited, for example, by the FDA or by the mainland or by the local Department of Health. So long that they have stock available, we procure them. Well, we've handed out 0.6 million kit, and they're just not limited to one brand. We choose Ma On Shan, well, as the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park Sports Center is now currently used as a vaccination or testing center. Well, a lot of our venues are occupied, and we found this Ma On Shan Center that's not a testing center or a vaccination center. Thus, we chose Ma On Shan's Sports Center to set up the Huoyan laboratory. And thank you all. And I can tell that by next Tuesday, I can tell you about more of the measures endorsed by the Executive Council.